Welcome to Microcollege, a podcast exploring innovative, place-based, and humanly scaled responses to the crises in higher education, meaning, and discourse in our time. Everyone knows that colleges and universities are at a breaking point, but what can be done? I'm Jacob Hunt, the director of Thoreau College, a microcollege in Viroqua, Wisconsin. Join us each week as we tackle this question head-on. Welcome to Microcollege. This week on the podcast, we are excited, we are thrilled to have Mike Haasl, who is a homesteader from Rhinelander in northern Wisconsin, beautiful Rhinelander. And he is one of the authors of a very fascinating new book and also really a new way of viewing the world in a lot of ways. This book is, the title is SKIP, which is an acronym for Skills to Inherit Property, a framework to connect industrious people with elderly land owners. There's a lot of life experience, a lot of principles packed into that, which we'll get to in a second. But first, welcome, Mike.
Thank you. It's good to be here in beautiful Viroqua.
Yes, here in the studio on WDRT. Thanks for coming down.
My pleasure.
So as listeners to the podcast will know, the people we have on, we like to start with a biographical question. So, Mike, if you could reflect back to your younger years, to the time when you were 18 to 21 years old, about where you were, what you were doing, what was formative to you during that period of your life?
That's a good, interesting time range. Let's see. So as I finished high school, I asked my guidance counselor what I should do, and he said, "You like math and science, you should be an engineer." So I went to UW-Madison for mechanical engineering. That was my 18 to 21-year-old time frame. So I guess I'd say more, so I learned how to party. That was fun.
Important skill.
Interpersonal connections and how to talk to people, all that
Madison,
stuff.
I think, is consistently the number one party school.
Yeah, it sometimes it's in its own section even because it isn't fair to the other schools. Yeah, but yeah, no, I had a good time in Madison. I'd actually kind of switch it up a little bit and say more of my formative stuff, at least in relations to this book, happened before or after that time. Like,
excellent.
Before would have been like playing in the woods behind my parents' house and chasing birds and bird watching and playing in the woods and hunting with my uncles, and that kind of got me out into nature and into fishing and in that side of the world.
This is northern Wisconsin, Rhinelander area?
Actually central.
Okay.
Yeah, and I grew up outside Madison. Okay. And then my dad didn't hunt or fish, but my uncles did, and they were Marshfield, Wisconsin Rapids area.
Yeah. Yeah, so Aldo Leopold, Sand County Almanac country.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mentioned that. We were just reading Sand County Almanac with the Thoreau College students this week.
Nice.
Which is great to read at this time of year. It begins in January, goes through the months, and so we're tracing those footprints. And I always think about Aldo Leopold when I think about that country, Wisconsin Rapids, central Wisconsin.
Gotcha. Yeah, so I learned a lot from my uncles, kind of remotely from my dad, where you're normally supposed to learn how to deer hunt and everything. And then after college, I'd got a house and had to finish off the basement and things like that. So then I'd never been into carpentry or any of those things, but over the course of the next 10 or 20 years, remodeled multiple basements, did the wiring, did the plumbing, did the drywall, and kept learning different elements of building a house and making furniture, and got into a blacksmithing club when I lived in Utah for a while. And I'm realizing now, I started to pick up skills and ways of looking at projects. My mechanical engineering brain, still with some creativity that they didn't drill out of me in college, plus projects gets me thinking about different ways of slapping together some pieces of wood to make a desk or something.
Yeah, so that's a question I wanted to ask. I mean, we've had at least one other person with an engineering background on this show in the past, and there's obviously a lot of richness in that education, a way of thinking, a really practical set of thinking tools there. But also there was, our previous guest was talking about the competitive nature of it and some of the kind of the aspects of it that are counter creative in some ways. Can you talk about in terms of the work that you've done, which is very creative, coming up with this curriculum, developing your own homestead, learning all these different skills, your mechanical engineering education, your formal education, what role did it play in what you were able to do afterwards?
Let's see it. Well, it helped me to be able to afford to do a lot of
important.
things afterwards. Yes, having a paying engineering job is awfully nice. And then, so on one side, engineering is a lot of, okay, here's the problem, you have to solve it, and there's one answer. I think that's what drills out a little bit of creativity. And, everyone, early on in your schooling, you're coming up with wild and crazy ideas, and the professor always says, well, that'll kill somebody, and well, then the car will break down after 3 miles, so that probably wouldn't work. And you pretty soon learn that it's a lot safer to just take what somebody else has done before and just small adjustments. So there's a bit of that. But yeah, you learn so much about how materials react to forces, at least on the mechanical side, on how to put things together so that they won't break. And that lends itself well to a lot of things around the homestead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that there's a opposition in our culture really that is between the humanities and the STEM subjects and even groups of people are divided up in that way, and that seems like it seems harmful to a culture if that's the case. If all of the poets and people reading novels know nothing about forces and vice versa, or the people who are designing things aren't grounded in the humanities as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a friend who's a musician, and we built actually one of these foam things on the wall behind us here, and he was just amazed at how 2 pieces of wood could attach together and not fall apart, and it's just different worlds coming together.
Yeah. So talk about the origins of your homestead, and talk about what sort of things you're doing on your own property these days.
Sure. Yeah, me and my wife Kara bought a place out in the country. I think it's about 8 years ago now. And it had been a little farm 2 owners back, but now it just there were a few apple trees. That was the only evidence, and a little barn. And the barn's what sold me on the place. Like, okay, it's a suitable house close to town. There's a barn, and there's some sun hitting the ground. Most of the Rhinelander's trees. So
yeah, I actually wanted people listen to this podcast all over the world. So maybe you could give us a little snapshot of the bioregion there of northern Wisconsin.
Perfect. Yeah, it's a gently rolling terrain, lots of trees and lakes. So we got, I think it's 240 lakes within, I think it's 12 miles of Rhinelander.
Wow.
It's just a crazy number of lakes. On the higher ground, you got tall white pines and oaks and maples, and then down in the lower land, you got tamaracks and not jack pines, just wetter trees, cedars, stuff like that. So it's a well irrigated area, a lot of sandy soils, and it's not as bumpy as the driftless, not nearly as much farming. It switches from farmland Wisconsin, stereotypical red barn, to trees about 100 miles south of us. So we're up in the tree area and the vacation homes. Yeah,
very distinctly different bioregion than southern Wisconsin or the driftless region, and it's a beautiful place. I've got family roots up there as well, and the things that we're talking about here, your climate, your soils, your animals, your geology in a place matters a lot to just doing a homestead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what we chose the place we bought because it had about an acre that wasn't trees. So up there it's easy to get 40. Well, not easy anymore, but 40 acres of trees. Yeah, but if you want to throw in a garden. Yeah, you got to clear the land and all that. So we found a place that had some open areas and a cute little barn, and we've just been improving it from there. Remodeled the house, put in a chicken coop. We've got usually about a dozen chickens running around. Built a greenhouse, put in a garden, starting a food forest, sugar shack. All the things.
Beautiful. Yeah. I imagine that there's folks listening to this who are saying, "Wow, that's pretty good. How do I get myself into a situation like that?"
Oh, it's easy. Well, there's a number of ways, and obviously you can go do the kind of thing I did, just get a job and work long enough that the house you live in is the house that you homestead in. So a lot of people do that. But
Yeah. One of the ways is skip.
Yeah, there's
right?
another way. It's skip, which is super awesome.
So again, SKIP stands for Skills to Inherit Property, a framework to connect industrious people with elderly landowners. And this is the book that was Kickstarter funded book project. How much did you raise in the Kickstarter?
Around 147,000.
Yeah, that's a pretty good Kickstarter.
Yeah, suitable amount.
And it's a beautiful illustrated book. A lot of humor, a lot of background to the story. A really good sort of storytelling. But fundamentally, it's a long checklist of particular experiences, right?
Yep.
Organized in different ways. Start this story from the beginning.
Sure.
Where does it begin?
Well, let's see. So skip. We're trying to connect industrious, aspiring homesteaders, generally probably younger folks, try to come up with a way for them to prove themselves in order to be able to impress some other older person that they don't know, somewhere else in the world, country, state, that has a nice little place, a little farmette, a little homestead, but they don't have a suitable heir that's going to take over the land and keep it a homestead or a farm. So on one side, you've got young folks who yearn for this, but don't have the capital to buy a homestead. And at the same time, you've got older folks who either they don't have kids. I've met a lot of back to the land hippies who don't have kids. Mm-hmm. And there's other older folks who do have kids, but they know if they gave their land to their kids, it would get sold to the highest bidder and turned into a subdivision. Mm-hmm. So there's folks at both ends of this equation, and they needed something in the middle to connect them. So that's why Paul came up with this framework.
Yeah. So, Paul, can you tell us about Paul?
Yeah. Paul Wheaton. He's my buddy who pulled me into this. He runs permies.com, the largest permaculture website, which many people I'm hoping are aware of. Does a lot of great things. He has a site out in Montana where he experiments with rocket mass heaters and hugelkultur and a bunch of elements of homesteading and permaculture that he really likes and wants to push forward. So, he came up with this idea kind of as an alternative to a PDC. So
stands for
Permaculture Design Certificate or course, I think certificate. Mm-hmm. So it's a 2-week intensive program where you learn how to do permaculture design. And it's mainly indoors, like bookwork, and you come out of it with a toolkit to kind of start designing. And he was thinking it'd be nice to have a way for people to actually do projects and do physical things. And initially he was thinking over a 2-week period. It turns out it takes a lot longer to do all these things. But
PDC is a theoretical experience largely. You're introduced to certain concepts and forms.
Yeah, educational. There's a lot of like how does groundwater move and what's the water cycle. And
so permaculture could mean a lot of different things to people. It's a powerful paradigm, and it's been a somewhat recurrent theme on some of our programs in here at Thoreau College. So I'd love to, if you could give your definition or your understanding of that term. What does permaculture mean?
To me, it means working or designing your life to work more closely with Mother Nature instead of spraying things at her. So, whether it's outside, in the house, you're heating, cooling, anything, it's just finding a way to work with Mother Nature instead of controlling her, using natural systems to solve problems for you. Yeah.
Well, that sounds pretty easy. So, right, what are the barriers that so these the people who have land that they would like to have continued to be stewarded to pass on to someone who will work with it and live with it. I know that these landowners are out there because they have approached me. Mm-hmm. A number of them have approached me just in my role as the person connected with this college, with the Driftless Folk School. It sounds like you've met some people like this too.
Yeah, mainly through the Kickstarter, I'd get emails and communications every once in a while. I think I've had over 20 people now tell me that they're an Otis, which is a nickname for folks like this.
Right. Should you explain who's Otis?
So Otis is a fictional guy that Paul made up. He's got this is an average of all the people that he's made up, but like 200 acres. He's got 2 houses, the old one he grew up in and the new one up by the road that he lives in now. But he doesn't have any kids who would take over the place. So he's got all the equipment. He can't take care of the animals anymore. And he's just one of these imaginary folks. But yeah, it's easier to call everyone Otis's instead of, well, it's an elderly, or Otis's.
So that's, and of course, in the book, Otis has a picture, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a fictional character, but based on many actual people.
Yeah.
So I do think that people listening to this will say, person doesn't exist. But this person definitely exists in multiple forms, and we've both met them.
Yep. Yeah, I've met over 20, and anytime I talk to a group, like if I go to a Rotary Club and do a talk about this, and there's 15 people in the audience, afterwards one will kind of sneakily come up and say, yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
So they're all over the place.
So another way to talking about this that's a really like important issue in the agricultural world, in the land stewardship world, is generational succession, right? That's kind of the technical term, and we know that many small farms have gone out of business, or they kind of run to the end of a generational line in the last 20 to 50 years, and so this is a big issue. Who's going to raise our food? Who's going to take care of our land? So that's one end of it. Who's on the other side of this? Can you characterize the people a little bit more who may be going through this kind of skip process?
Yeah, we don't have as generic and easy to pigeonhole a person on the other side. In my mind, they're high school age, college age. They're looking ahead to going, like they've been told all their lives, well, maybe not anymore, but back 10 years ago, is go to college, go to college, go to college, go to college, and get a job and do all the things that your parents did and everyone else did. But they see what's wrong with the world. They want to get their hands dirty. They want to be in a garden. They've been an intern, or they've done woofing, or they've done something like that, and they want to do that more. They can fix the world in their own little backyard, but they don't see that happening if they're the assistant department manager at some place.
And carrying around a bunch of debt.
And then driving to and from work, and whatever their job is, it's probably not helping the environment, and they might want to help instead of hurt. So they might have the skills, they might not have the skills, but they don't have the capital.
Right.
And land is just getting more and more expensive, so they're kind of stuck, and you can. Even if you had the financial ability to go woofing and interning for 5 years, at the end of that, you've got a lot of skills. You know how to take care of goats, and you know how to run a greenhouse. You know all these things. You still don't have the capital. And the best you can do is get a job somewhere doing those things for somebody else, which is great, but there's only so many of those jobs today.
Yeah. So this is, again, a type of person that I meet all the time in my roles here, right? And that's certainly one of the reasons that people come to Thoreau College, right? They're people who are questioning the educational system. They have a real interest in doing good things for the earth. They have a real interest in living in a sort of in a hands-on kind of engaged way with the material world. And Henry David Thoreau, our kind of namesake and kind of inspiration here, is an early example of this kind of person, right? It's his sense of living in an engaged life, which is also a morally coherent kind of aesthetically kind of rich life in a unique way. Again, I meet people like this all the time. Many times they are people who have grown up in the suburbs or in an urban place or just in a context where they haven't had any opportunity to develop any skills that you might need to work with a piece of land. And I think it's just a statement of our time, our economy, our culture, just the modernization that has happened in the last 50 to 200 years, is that people are more and more disconnected, not just from the land, but from actually material reality in some way. Mm-hmm. If you think about the American space program or the military or the kind of the industrial structure of the country, much of it was built by people who grew up on dairy farms, like small farms where you had to fix the tractor and work with animals and fix the fence and then take care of the house and do the bookkeeping and kind of market things. And there was sort of a multitasking, multi-skilled kind of life that many, much of the population experienced for a long time that just isn't present anymore. So this is very, like, the idea of skip is very exciting to me because it meets a really, my sense is it meets a really urgent need that I'm faced with all the time so tell us more about how it works, right?
Sure. Yeah, so the program is housed on permies.com, which is a forum-based software system. So some of these young kids that are doing this probably have never participated on an internet forum. So
You do a folk school class on that now, I guess.
yeah, early interneting for you for millennials. So yeah, it's so you go to permies.com. The whole program is free. So yay, you can afford it finally. Yes. So you go to permies.com/skip. And that's kind of the place I send everyone for an introduction to the whole kind of the stuff we're talking about here, the same information that's in the book. Well, there's a lot more in the book, but that's a good place to start. It'll show you all the badges, how to get into the program. So you'll go in and look at, there's 22 different badges. Each badge has a number of up to 4 levels within it. And each of those levels has a number of skills or projects that you can do to earn that badge.
So the 22 badges, like what distinguishes those 22 different things?
Well, the name, of course. Right. Like there's a gardening badge, there's a natural building badge, electrical, plumbing, textiles, food prep and preservation, commerce.
So there's 22 different areas of distinct sort of skill areas, experience areas, different kind of sets of things you want to know something about in order to be a good steward of a piece of land.
Yeah, to show, and you can delve deeply into some of them and just barely skim others, just like in school. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you pick one that you want to start on, and within that badge you can drill in and see each of the skills that you can do, and within that there'll sometimes be a little YouTube video, a little guidance of what's expected. There'll be some specific requirements, and then a number of photos that you have to, or videos that you have to take. And you complete the task. Say it's whittling a spoon, and so you have to show the piece of wood you're starting with, partway through whittling it, and then the finished spoon, I think, are the requirements for that one. So you post those pictures. Somebody else will certify it that you either did it or you didn't do it good enough. And then, yay, you got that one thing done. And once you do all the items under that badge, you'll earn that badge. And if you do enough badges, you earn a bigger rank, and you can just work your way up through the system and get more and more certifications, I guess, if you will, below your name and your signature line.
Mm-hmm. So, and who's doing the verification of that you've actually done the thing?
A couple people. It's supported right now by Permies staff members who are just doing it in their spare time. And at the same time, folks that are completing these, once you've earned a badge, you can certify the people that come after you in the badge bits, the little parts. So, and to get a higher rank, you have to have done a certain number of certifications. So it's kind of like a self-supporting system in that manner.
Yeah, so that's a really innovative structure as well. That's it's this community-sourced kind of verification, and I think one of the things that in poking around the Permies site that is, the book is. It doesn't tell you how to do these things.
No.
Right? But on the website, there's actually a fair amount of information if you wanted to get started, like in terms of like YouTube videos or like articles about how to do these various activities.
Yeah. We definitely in Skip, we don't want to teach anything, but we want everyone to learn everything.
Yeah.
So, like, if the job is sewing a pillow, and we could try to. Well, we don't want to have to teach everyone. There's like over 1,200 things in here, so we don't want to have.
That's a
teaching.
big book. Yeah, that's a whole. I mean,
it's a long list.
This looking at it is like, wow, these folks have gone and come up with a whole curriculum, right?
Yeah.
For living basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this one is living the way Paul. And this is Paul's program, and so it's like it's got Paul's specific. There's a lot of Rocket Mass heater stuff in there, for instance. But it's a long list of ways to impress an Otis who's on the same general mind frame as Paul.
Yeah,
would maybe be a way to put it. But
yeah, so that's I think it's something I really appreciated about this. I mean, I look at this and I've handed it to a couple of other people who are knowledgeable about skills and stuff, and they're like, well, that's like that particular thing. I don't know anything about that, but there's something here that I don't know. And that's explicit actually in the design. This is the principles that are in this first version are those that are applicable to Paul Wheaton's place in Montana.
Yeah.
Right? But that's recognized in the structure. There could be other versions of this.
Yep,
and
definitely.
I think you're working on one as well?
Yep. Yeah, under the umbrella of Skip could be numerous programs. So one is permaculture experience according to Paul, so it's called PEP. And then there's a another one that's defined currently, permaculture experience for apartments. So that one you could do anywhere in the world, even if you don't have a window. And there's it's a smaller program, but there's that one. I'm working on,
That's
I guess
awesome,
you call it PEM, so permaculture experience according to Mike. And that'll be much more suited, in my mind, to the kind of homesteading we do around here, where it rains once in a while.
Yeah.
And we don't have a bunch of rocket mass heaters just handy like Paul does. He's got a bunch. He's blessed. So I'm trying to create my own, and I've got a different badge that I'm real excited about. That's more traditional skills. So there's a lot of those built into all these, but I'm going to replace one of the oddball badge for those who have already read the book with a traditional skills badge that'll have pioneer stuff, old European, like, making soap, making candles, birch bark canoe.
Yeah. That's a
making
lot of that's our bread and butter of the film school classes. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. It's like stuff that didn't fit in the other badges and wasn't in Paul's.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I'm going to do a catch-all that does all these, and like some wildcrafting kind of survival, fire starting, debris shelter, that sort of thing. So I anticipate launching that sometime soon. So then there'd be a third one, but there could be there could be plenty of other programs under SKIP. Like there could be a tropical one for how to set up your banana circles and how to live in the jungle, desert ones. There could be like an organic market gardening according to Arwen. And like have one that some lady named Arwen comes up that's more for market gardening and greenhouse management instead.
Wait, did you know that Arwen was the person who runs our greenhouse?
Oh, she is?
Yeah.
Sweet. There we go. Go, Arwen. Yeah, so you could come up with one that's got like greenhouse management skills that aren't and it could be any kind of a business, really, as long as there's enough people that it's worth doing. Somebody could put together a program under this umbrella.
Yeah, I wanted to just give the people listening here just a little example of this. And so I think the one that we've really looked at most closely so far here, this is already influencing our curriculum design kind of principles, was the food prep and preservation class. So at the moment, the participants in the Thoreau College spring semester program they're in a month-long block meeting, 6 hours a week or so with our food instructor on cooking skills, basic kitchen skills. And so Frank, our instructor, was excited to see this. And so this is so as Mike is mentioning here, there is these 22 different badges, which are these different subject areas, basically.
Yeah, technically we call them aspects, but I'm using different simpler. There's a lot of acronyms in this. I'm trying to keep it a little simple. But yeah, technically each one you'd have the food prep aspect, and within it are the four badges. But that's a little.
So each of those have 4 levels, right? There's the sand badge, the wood badge.
Sand, straw, wood,
and iron, right? Yeah. They're kind of increasing levels of kind of intensity and also just scope of some of these projects. By the time you get up to iron, some of them are quite large.
They're huge. Yeah, it's basically based on how many hours of experience you gain doing the badge. So the sand one is 5 hours of experience, and the iron is like 1,200 or something.
Yeah. So in that's like cooking and food prep. In the sand badge, some of the things that are there: cast iron skillet skills. Fry an egg so that it slides around. A stack of 10 pancakes. Hash browns that fully cover the skillet. Right? Cook at least 2 cups of grain. Right? On a stove cup, a rice cooker, a solar oven. Canning. Right? Make a pizza. Bake 2 loaves of bread. This is the kind of thing. So if you work, all the way up to the iron badge, right? You work to the place where 99% of your food that you're using is organic or better, right? Yep. Sourcing kind of conditions. 90% of the food comes from homesteading, preferably from your own homestead, right? You preserve 4 million calories.
Yep.
Right? Prepare 3,200 plates of food. At least 400 plates need to be 100% from your homestead, right? So you can see this goes from frying an egg on your own skillet so that slides around up to, right? Really feeding your whole community, basically.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think 4 million, I forget how many million calories. I think that's enough food for 2 people. It's either 2 or 4 people.
So for a whole year.
For a year, yeah. Yep. Yeah, a lot of these, I really like the textiles badge. The beginning one is like darn a sock, sew a patch, make a pillow, weave a basket. I'm going to forget one now. Make twine and something else about like that. And at the iron level, one of them is make an entire wardrobe for yourself, starting with the seeds.
Yeah.
So, planting the flax and making the linen and then sewing it. And that's just one of the bits in that one.
Yeah. So I think that it's totally modular. As you're saying, like all 22, like unlikely that everyone's going to be an iron badge in everything. Like that's probably never going to happen, right? But that does allow you a sense to like specialize, right? You can get really good at one thing and then also have a breadth of experience across these other and more basic levels.
Yeah, certainly. And there's at least one gal who wants to do the whole textiles badge all the way through just to show that she can do it.
Her whole order from seed.
Yep, all that stuff. And it takes a little while. Yeah, so that's her goal, and that's wonderful. She might not even do any of the other badges. She just wants to do that. And then there's probably some Otis or Otessa somewhere that's like, I don't care that she didn't get the other ones. She grew her clothes and made shoes and did all this stuff. She gets my place. I don't care about anyone else.
Right.
So there could be that.
So there's a way. I mean, there are some deep kind of permacultural principles built into this. I mean, the idea of adjustable, having different sets of skills and experiences for different environments, different kind of life circumstances. You're in an apartment, you have a family, you're in a place in different sort of biome, but also like individual people are different too. There's a way that this is unlike a conventional university degree, right? There's a lot more of a variability here that you could build into your own education and experience.
Yeah, in university, you can go for a number of different degrees, I guess.
It's true.
You don't have to just get one, but yeah, this does have a lot of flexibility. You do whatever you want, and you don't have to finish anything and do what you want.
So how long has this skip has been up on Permies in some form since how long?
I would say it kind of showed up officially more like about 4 years ago or so. They started creating the first badges, and then Paul has events out there. So he had a free event. Anyone who had done 20 badge bits or little tasks could come out there for free for a week. So I was like, oh, cool, free vacation. I hadn't been out there. I hadn't met the guy. So I went out there and spent a week doing badge work with a bunch of strangers, and I wanted to get certain things done because I knew I could only do them there, and got a bunch of stuff done. And then from there, I was kind of in the lead. I was the candidate to be the co-author then, I guess, unfortunately. so I just kept staying involved with it, and
it's almost like this is like an Otis situation, right? You demonstrated you got some skills,
yep,
some commitment to it.
Yeah, I had demonstrated the ability, and I had the time to work on the book, and I don't know how many thousands of hours we spent getting that thing done.
I mean, it's evident by reading this book that it was a lot of fun, right? The kind of the language and just the kind of the there's a playfulness about it that I really appreciated.
Yeah, a lot of that's Paul's way of talking, and I'd write something, he'd write something, we'd be on Zoom together, and I'd be able to. It was 90% his words, and I could just hopefully change things to sound a little as the window dressing on. So yeah, that's definitely Paul's style.
So since then, I mean, you've gone out and you've led some of these sessions with Paul out there. Can you talk about what happens in these 2-week kind of what do you call them?
Yeah, just a skip event.
A skip event.
I guess you'd call it. Yeah, it's not the class because we're not teaching. We're just facilitating you to be able to do these tasks. So folks will come out. We've got a schedule. Okay, in the mornings we're going to do the harder work because it's Montana and it gets hot. So we'll do something in the morning, something in the afternoon. Last year we had enough instructors that we had 2 tracks going. So you could either be out with me doing something or over with Opalyn or Penny doing a different one. And yeah, it's 8 hours, 4 hours morning, 4 hours afternoon. Work your butt off trying to get all the things done. We've got a packed schedule so that you can get it. If you can get it all done, you go home with a bunch of badges.
Yeah, you've moved through a chunk of this program.
Yeah, you can get like 5 to 7 badges in that 2 weeks of the sand badge, and usually it's ones that are hard to get at home. Like there's some Paul specific stuff in there. It's a lot easier to use his backhoe to build a hugelkultur that's 7 feet tall than it is to do it at home with a wheelbarrow and a shovel. But yeah, folks come out for 2 weeks. It's usually 2 5-day weeks with 2 days off on the weekend. You can camp out there, pay to sleep in a cabin. Organic food, of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a pretty nice time.
Cool. And could you characterize what sort of people were showing up to do that? Like where were they in life, and how did this fit into their trajectories?
I guess surprisingly to me, most of them were not who I pictured. Like this last summer, I think we had a pair of brothers who were in that age range, and most of the people, I hope they're not listening if I'm forgetting, but most of them were 40s to 60s years old. So there were people who just wanted to learn the skills. They didn't necessarily care about the inheriting property.
Yeah.
So on one lady, it was her first time using a hammer and a chainsaw and a backhoe, and she did it all in the same day. Maybe it was a
quantum
handsaw.
leap.
maybe not a hammer. Maybe it was a handsaw. It was something like that.
Whole stages of technological evolution being jumped over there.
Yep. Yeah, I wouldn't hire her to go run a major job site backhoe, but she did some scoops with the excavator. So yeah, people, they come away like one guy really got into the chisel work on round wood. There's make a 3-log bench out of a big log. So you cut 2 chunks for the legs, and you do the saddles, then set a big log chunk on top and flatten it. And he just was playing with the plane and the adze and hatchets and the chainsaw, and he was just really getting into the woodworking. And then he went off and did a totally different project that wasn't even part of the program, just because we don't care what you're doing. If you want to go whittle on some sticks, go for it. And now his goal is to go do timber framing. So he's going to a class somewhere to learn timber framing for a few months.
Thoreau College is a leader in an emergent movement dedicated to the renewal and revitalization of higher education through the creation of new, humanly scaled institutions with holistic curricula known as microcolleges. Thoreau College, higher education for the whole human being.
Yeah, so that's you're revealing here as something that has been evident to me is that the framing of this is very practical. Obviously, it's all the parts of it are practical, and the whole picture is there is this very real need that we both have seen, that there is generational transfer of both land but also of knowledge. That's that's part of the business that we are in here at Thoreau College and Driftless Folk School, but. Yeah, the reasons for doing that skill transfer are not necessarily to take over property, right? And it says you're noting to your older participants, there's something that is just, there's something inherently satisfying in being able to do things well with your hands, or a bunch of different kinds of things with your hands.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's soul building, I guess, to learn how to do those things. And not everyone has these tools, so being able to go play with a chisel and a mallet and build something for the first time in 20 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah, people like that.
Yeah, can you say what's your intuition about? I mean, what's lacking if you don't have that kind of experience? What's the need that's being filled by that?
Oh man, I'm an engineer, not a philosopher. Let's see. The need is there. The need to be able to fix things around your own house, I guess. I don't know if that's the right kind of thing. And once you've learned how to cut down a tree, then you can cut down a tree, and maybe you feel more confident about your abilities, or you can figure your way out of problems a little better once you've done some similar things. Like if you've built a birdhouse and a 2-step stool, maybe now you realize, I guess I could fix that gate in my garden. Maybe.
I think that where you're pointing to there is, there's a characteristic modern experience of powerlessness, right? That a lot of people feel that the world is big and complicated, and a lot of the tools that they use every day, they don't even know how they work. Right, they're kind of black boxes, and then things that ancestors used to know how to do, they don't know how to either. And so my sense, at least in the young people that I've worked with, is that there's a sense of disempowerment that comes with that powerlessness. That knowing how to cook your own egg, even right, that what's being talked about here, even those beginning sand level things are there's major kind of inner victories that are won by learning how to do those things.
Yeah, and like that egg example, I can't remember if you said the whole thing, but you have to fry an egg in cast iron and get it to slide around. Yeah. Without scraping it free with a spatula first.
Yep.
So the idea is to show how non-stick a properly seasoned cast iron pan is.
Right.
So when folks are looking at how all you can buy in the store is Teflon covered stuff that'll give you medical, everything's toxic in this world. Hey, there's a solution.
Yeah.
It's cast iron. I've used it. I did it, or I had to get Grandma's old pan out of the basement, but hey, it worked. Now I've got a solution to the problems that I was powerless to solve before.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a sense that again, there's something that flows from that. That's not just cooking an egg, right?
Yeah.
There's kind of inner development qualities that come from it as well.
Yep. Yeah. Until I cooked lasagna for the badge, I didn't realize how. Hey, this is really good, and I can do this. Now I'm cooking lasagna once.
There you go. Yeah.
And I had to make a chowder. Well, clam chowder is really good.
Yeah.
I didn't know how easy it was, but now that I had to do it to get the badge, because I'm doing these too. I'm still.
Well, yeah. Poking around in Permies, I do see that you may be one of the more advanced.
Yeah,
as one would expect from the person who wrote the book. So,
yeah, it's
good to see you're practicing what you preach.
Oh yeah. I think it depends how you rank things, but yeah, I think I've got the most badges. And there's a gal named Opalyn who's hopefully going to teach this summer again, and I think she has the most badge bits. So it's neck and neck.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to get up to the larger levels. Like individual badges are great, and then if you have 16 of the 22 sand badges, you get to PEP 1.
Uh-huh.
Ooh, sparkle. And then if you do like a wood badge, 7 straw badges, and all the rest sand badges, then you get to PEP 2. Ooh. Yeah. And so that's like graduating elementary school. I mean, graduating or they're different levels. So yeah, I'm working towards PEP 2 right now. I'm probably getting close.
Yeah.
And
I think it's a really powerful idea. I mean, there's our whole educational system has been organized for a long time around a certain number of hours, Carnegie units and credit hours and things like that, that are entirely abstract. Actually, I've been faced with several times trying to translate the kind of experiential, immersive learning that we do here into like university catalog systems, and it's really like on the one hand you come up with a number that looks ridiculous to the university because it's all the time, right? People are learning something. If they're not reading a book, they're cooking a meal, or they're working in the garden, or they're like having a meeting, and all of these things are learning experiences. And how do you document those in some way? And so instead of, you translate into hours here clearly. But also fundamental unit here is the experience, right? Having the experience, and that could take different amounts of time for different people for different skills.
Yeah. The time is it was awkward for Paul too. Luckily, he did most of this thinking before I got involved. But there's 2 elements of it. One is like the sand badge in his mind is roughly 5 hours of experience. So you could bake bread and it takes you more than an hour. But how much of that time were you doing anything?
Right.
It might be 15 minutes you spent mixing stuff, kneading stuff, throwing it in the oven, pulling it out. So the cooking, the food prep and preservation badge, has a whole lot of stuff in that sand badge. And you're like, there's no way you can do all that in 5 hours. But it's the experience part of each one of those.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, like there's one building a mallet. Like so you take a chunk and you cut away everything that doesn't look like a club. And some people can do that in 5 minutes. Other people take some 8 hours to do that. So there's an element of how fast people can do a certain task. So yeah, time's tricky.
But I think another thing that I like about it, I mean, it's coming out in your story about your journeying through these badges, is that you're a mechanical engineer. You've got certain experience with tools and with so I'm imagining like the building and the construction things are like maybe your comfort zone. That's where you go to first. But then just having the structures encouraging you also to figure out how to bake lasagna and to do some of these, to really diversify your skill set.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And there's roundwood woodworking. I'd never done anything like that. Mm-hmm. And that's it doesn't have timber framing in here. It's roundwood using the whole log. Yeah. And I hadn't done any of that stuff either. But yeah, I know my way around a saw, so that worked out. It was fun to delve into that and move a little ways there, but then getting into cooking. And the wife picks on me all the time. Are you just doing this for a badge bid? Yes, I am. I'm never going to clean the refrigerator out again, probably. But I got it once, and that's all I needed
Right,
to
that
do.
stuff's all in there too. I
yeah.
mean, that is something that we end up teaching. We have our students are running a household. They're cleaning the toilet. They're all these things are also built into here, which is so I was so glad to see that.
Yeah. Yeah, because Otis wants to make sure if he gives you his second house, the one he grew up in, that he has all these memories of, that you're going to keep it clean.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, there's a badge called Nest that covers keeping your house a home.
Yeah.
And there's also the other unusual one, maybe, I don't know, you're probably going to ask this next, is the Commerce badge.
Right, yeah. There's commerce, and there's what was the other one? Like community living.
Community living, yep.
Yeah, can you talk about the community living one? And
Sure.
And because that also is a lot of what we're doing here at Thoreau College.
Yeah, so the goal of that is to build the kind of community that Paul likes. And he's got an intentional community at his site, and he runs it in a very particular way that he's consulted with other intentional communities, and he's a fair bit of experience in this area. So this badge reflects the kind of community building he thinks supports a community. So there's a lot of stuff that people would think is a community item, but it isn't according to his experience. So there are a lot of things like making art that the community can see, or like having events like club meetings and
Signage, like informational.
Yeah, informational signs on things, maps to show you how to get around the place, stuff. Yeah, things like that. I'm trying to remember all the things in there. I should pull the book out. It's right in front of me here.
I wish someone would write a book with this in there.
Yeah. Oh no, where is it? Yeah, like setting up a little free library, honor system food stands, making a dinner and doing all the dishes for 8 people. That's one that's hard for people to do. It's hard for 8 people to enjoy a meal and then not help with the dishes. And so many times we've rejected those because people will have help at some point, and they think it builds community to have help. And normal people, well, I won't say normal, lots of people would think that, but Paul's experience is that it's a true gift to your community if you do everything versus making all the dishes dirty in the kitchen, serving a meal, and then leaving, and then everyone else has to clean the dishes or something like that. So he's got some reasons for some of these things. But yeah, making a holiday.
Yeah, I think even if we can reasonable people can disagree what goes onto those lists. The fact that Nest and community living and commerce, things like that are on this list, like it invites the conversation about what are the essential skills that a person you'd want it to a person to demonstrate, and especially as we're thinking about creating curriculum here, like it's stimulating, to like, well, what would I put on that list?
Yeah, I've after going through this list so many times over and over and working on it, it's like I kind of wish I had my own. So now that's why I'm working on my own list. It's very similar, but there's areas that I'm changing around because I think they're more important for here or for me, and other ones are less important. But
cool.
That's okay.
Yeah. Do you where do you hope this goes? Where does this go next?
That's great. Until I met you, I was thinking that the where it might go would be like folk schools would teach, like maybe take on this and say, hey, we could do the Woodland Care badge and have that as a folk art thing, and people could come here and do a Woodland Care badge from this SKIP program that maybe you've heard about, and it'd be just a way of bundling badges, and people could come and do a couple badges at a folk school. But then you got me thinking, and now I guess there's this thing called like microcolleges, and and maybe you're probably way ahead of me on this, but then I realized, well, there could be small little schools that have this as a major part of their curriculum. So you do some SKIP stuff, you do some of that philosophical liberal artsy stuff that's so wonderful, and some all those things, but combine it into a 2-year program, something. And then taking a little bit from engineering school, when we got junior year or so, you'd go out and you'd work at a factory or at a company for 6 months, so do an internship or a co-op term. And then they also had like job placement things, like you'd do interviews on campus, all the employers would come. So something like that with Otis's, where, okay, you're in this 2-year program at some college in southwest Wisconsin that's really small, maybe micro, And then, after a certain period, you're doing internships at different Otis's places or
Right.
just homesteads. Maybe it isn't an Otis. You don't know who's an
Never
Otis.
know,
Who is it?
right?
Could be this person. Could be Nancy here. I don't know. Better not make her mad.
Yeah.
And then there could be like more of a actual connection between the Otis and the student if it had a microcollege to base it all around. So like a regional area and there's probably 2,000 Otises within 50 miles of right here.
Yeah, I think that the Driffles region here is especially dense with because there's a lot of small farms, a lot of kind of creative-minded people who've cared for their land, and I think it's an environment that it's the Amish have settled this area, the Back to the Landers have settled this area for a reason, right? It's a landscape that supports this kind of diversified permaculture kind of way of life.
Yeah, exactly. I could now imagine small colleges having this program built or having a program built around this. Maybe it's not even this, but it's their own idea of skills that would be worthwhile, but then connecting them deliberately with people in the community, Otis's in the community, having between internships and time spent on the farm, making those connections. And then, whereas the SKIP program in Permies, we don't know that nobody necessarily knows anyone. One Otis in Maryland might choose somebody, a kid from Wisconsin, and they come out there and they meet and all that, and that's wonderful. But it could be deliberately done in a small microcollege type format. So.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that your events out there have attracted slightly older people. That really is actually not surprising to me, because I think that those are the people who have the enough skills to even get to that point. Right. I do think that one of the things that a microcollege context may well be able to offer is getting people to the point where they could do something like that. Because, like I say, I think that the baseline kind of cultural knowledge of how to do things is so depleted across the society that people need, like scaffolding, right? And that's what schools, ideally provide, right? There's a scaffolding to learn something that then eventually you're able to stand on your own, right? And so this. My sense is, that's one of the ways we're already working with this idea here is what are the baseline things that we can get people introduced to so then they can go out and, we're not going to like walk through a person of creating their whole wardrobe from seed. Like that'd be crazy to create like a college program around that. People got to do that on their own. But the beginning, like all those sand badge things, like that basically is a microcollege curriculum, I would say.
Yeah, and I could see. And one challenge with this is you have to do all these tasks yourself. You can't have help,
right?
Except like a little muscle help. Getting a big log is fine.
Yep.
So,
but that's a great kind of, I think, impulse here, right? Because you could, people can choose which ones they do, and that whether they actually go and submit it to Permies or not, that's up to them. But like the framework of how you learn the skills, and then people can choose what they do with it. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and I could see people having a bunch of free time, like 3 days a week. You've got a half a day to do work more in depth on whatever badges you want. And so you could specialize in textiles or specialize in something or explore. The core curriculum is maybe the sand badges, but by the time you get out of school, maybe you'd have those higher level ones done. And if you stay local and don't even post it to Permies, then maybe you find somebody regionally, or you get accredited on the Permies accreditation system. There's no such thing, but you can post out there, and then now the whole world can see what you've done, and maybe someone in France would give you a vineyard or something.
Maybe, yeah. And so your other thought about folk schools, I think, is also like something that makes a lot of sense to me. And we are here. We both have microcollege and folk school in the same organization, so also is influencing my thinking about folk school course offerings, right? We have a variety of classes. We have foraging and wildcrafting. We have textile things. We have cooking and food things. We have sort of all kinds of a lot of these different areas. But they're looking at this really also illuminated me. Oh, we don't have any of that, right? Several different areas that are missing. That is having a framework like that is helpful also in kind of filling out a full curriculum of 1 or 2 day workshop-y type classes for people of all ages.
Yep.
Yeah.
Happy to help.
Yeah, I think that you and Paul and have done a great service with this. I really was so excited to learn about it.
Thank you.
And it's something I've started to share with our students right away and to tell people about. So I'm really glad you're able to come on and explain something about it, and so I can also direct people to this interview. So
yeah, my pleasure. Yeah, and if they need to, I'm assuming we're wrapping or getting closer
Sure,
to finishing up. Yeah, if you need to get more information about it, of course, permies.com/skip has everything. This wonderful book is, you can purchase it on Permies, or you can get it on any online retailer of your choice. The nice thing about that is the more reviews we get out there on those online platforms, I think it spreads things even further, so that's a neat way. Or I can sneak you some on the side, but that doesn't help the people listening probably.
Yeah. Well, check it out, and definitely, check out the book, check out the site on Permies, because it really explains a lot of it. And just even if you have no interest in documenting what you're doing, it's a great list to compare your own, what you know now and what you'd like to know and what you'd like to know how to do. And it's the work has been done to really think about what it might do, what you might need to know and might need to experience in order to live in a pretty self-sustainable kind of life.
Yep. Yeah. What are some projects I can do this weekend?
Yep. Thank you, Mike.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, Jacob.
All right.